Hello and welcome to my final project development video. My name's Craig Emerson, and what I have built is called the digital footprint tracker. So the digital footprint is a trail of things, data you leave behind on the internet. So for example, if I go and buy something at Domino's, they might need my email address and my name. If all the companies put a little bit of this, the kind of digital data that you've given them together, that creates your digital footprint. Data control is quite popular right now, so the idea that users should control their data is important, and this gives users back control of their data so that they know who's tracking them. From there, they could send a GDPR right to erasure request to that company to say, please can you stop having my data. So this was built in React Native. I'll be testing it on an Android emulator. I think I'm using a Nexus phone right now as the emulator. So what we have is a system where users will log in with Gmail and type in keywords. So for example, what I mean by keywords is common company keywords like deal, sale, offers. You can have a look at what companies are tracking you, and then you can add it to the digital footprint list, which is a list of companies that store the data on you. So without further ado, I will load up both the app and the code. So what we have here, what I've got first is the app.js file. This is the run file for the code. This is by far the most important piece of code in the whole thing. So it looks tiny. So what we've got here is we import some fonts. This is a bit irrelevant, but we import these fonts that I've used within there. The biggest thing here is the navigator. So what the navigator is, I've imported it from root/sign-in page stack. We'll look at the architecture in just a second. The navigator contains all the screens in a stack navigator. So it contains everything. Everything on the screen you can see there is contained in this navigator item. So this is the most important. Break this, the application doesn't work. So if I turn your attention to where my cursor is here on the left, I will demonstrate the architecture of this. So first we have styles. So I have a global style sheet, and we'll take a look at this global style sheet. What this has is a bunch of different styles that I've used throughout the document. There are two reasons why I did this. I did this one so I didn't have to write a style sheet on every single document. That would use up so much time, and that would be very it just wouldn't be very clean to look at. You'd see all this code and then you see the same style sheet, when really we can just create the style object and we can just call it within each page. So one thing for me, in my evaluation, one of the key components was a consistent kind of theme or consistent design, so that users can feel familiar with this. So I created a very simple kind of consistent design in the style sheet, and then we can just call it again in every single document. We have shared. This has a couple of objects in it that I've used in basically every single page. We have the header. So the header, if you look on the right where the emulator is, the header is the digital footprint manager. So this stays the same regardless of what page we're on, and this is very just a styled header. So we just have a couple of things like the flex direction, the font size, what font we're using, and stuff like that. This is used through every single screen. We have card. A card is this little piece here. So I developed this card because it's just a nice way to store data with the white background. People can read what's inside it, as opposed to having the yellow background with what's inside it. So just a card that stores content very nicely. We have then the screens. It contains all the screens, the screen code for the application. I will show you when I go on each individual screen. We've got routes, which has the sign-in page stack, which has the navigator in it. We'll discuss that in just a second. We have assets that contain the fonts and different images that I've used, and the Google components. So this Google component, I'll talk about it briefly, but this just contains a key, an Android ID, and this key is what we need to connect to the Google interface. So without this key we cannot interface over to Google, so this is called within the Google login page. So I'll get over to the sign-in page stack. So what we have here, we have a list of screens. So we have all the screens here, and this is where they're all stored. This is what their names are called, and the navigator basically combines these together in a stack navigator. So what a stack navigator does is When you click on a button, for example, if we did continue to Digital Footprint Hub, so we start with the sign-in screen, which is on the bottom. We click the Digital Footprint Hub page, and it will pop on the Digital Hub page, and then it will push off the hub page if we go back to the null base. So it starts with the very bottom one, and then it slowly builds, and then they can be popped off. So I will show the first screen now. So we have the sign-in page. I'll load up the code for it now. What we have here is a fairly basic sign-in screen. So we have the name, welcome to the Digital Footprint Manager. We also have a little bit of a kind of abstract to say the Digital Footprint Manager is a tool to track your online presence. Press the button to get started to try and entice people to start. We just have a button container and a logo. So like it says on here, continues to the Digital Footprint Hub. I will do that now. I did that probably. Now we're on the Digital Footprint Hub, so I'll load up the code for that. What we have here is still a very basic kind of screen. We have the different button navigators, so we've got hand press, press button, and these will go to different places on the document. What this is an app container that has just 4 buttons that connect to different screens, but without this kind of base screen, we don't have the idea that you can go anywhere in the document, in the application, sorry. So we have about, instructions, track your digital footprint, and sign out. So we'll start with the about page. So on the about page, I'll load up the code. It's a very simple page. So one thing I stress, and this is more a design comment, is I try to keep the design the same through all the app pages. So we started with this yellow theme. The yellow theme's been present the whole time. In the, for example, in the hub page, and this is the same with every page, but this is the best way to display it, is there's a lot of white around the back. I thought it was important to not have too much colour, because now those blue buttons really stand out, so you can see where the buttons are, and you can see with the text that they say. If you have maybe a full yellow background or different colour buttons, it's all kind of gets a bit merged. Users won't know where it is. So to keep it consistent and user friendly, I added a white background instead. So if we go on the about page, this is just the same again, a fairly basic screen, sorry, that has the like kind of background into about the document. So we've got a piece about how in society we're always tracked. This app allows users to identify which companies store their data, so that users can send a GDPR right to erasure. So the goal is that users would be able to send a right to erasure request to the companies in the list, so that if they felt their data was unsecure, then they can get rid of that. So I've just added a little comment at the end to say that this application was built by myself, Craig Emerson, as a MSc Computer Science project. Basic screen there, just with the card containing a bit of documentation about what this is about, so users understand why this was even made. So if we go back to the hub, go to instructions. This is a documentation that contains instructions for the document. So the same again, we just have a couple of cards with some documents in it to make it look nice. So we have instructions on how to do it. So it says, after reading the instructions, return to the hub and click track your digital footprint. Sign in with Gmail, then use the Gmail search bar to filter by the keywords provided. Once all the companies are noted, click create your digital footprint, and then add the companies to create your digital footprint. So one of my components, another one of my components that I evaluated against was help and documentation. A really good app does not need kind of documentation with it, but I feel like it always should be supplied, so that even if users, it could be the best app ever, users know where they stand, what they can do on there. So it's just a bit of an advice towards you.